This is highly recordable stuff. Welcome to the OFX podcast. I'm Dave Claxton. Along with me is I'm going to bash Battle Bunker Bethany. Go on, Hannah. Well, the Battle Bunker stuff will come later. So, all right, what the hell's on your hand?
Yeah, so we went to there's all these festivals all the time in downtown London. And so we went to one this weekend, and my daughter really wanted to get henna done. So she got henna done, and then we were walking by a booth later, and they were selling the henna tubes. And so she's like, "Oh, will you buy me one so I can practice on you?" So I'm like, "Okay, sure." So you watch the YouTube videos, and people make it look super easy. So she practiced on me, and I didn't actually realize it would stain this bad.
Oh,
So I have kid scribbles very stained on my hands right now.
it's not that bad. I mean, it could be worse. Like it's you know,
It could be worse. So she was practicing her hearts over here to
I
match my little heart tattoo, and this was like her attempt at what she had done. So
yeah. So that's kind of the classic design. So put the other hand up again. Okay, so the heart's on like the top of the hand are fine. What is at the edge of the finger there? What's going on there?
that's a heart.
That's a no, it's not.
Well, it is. There's a little bit more down my arm too.
Oh my God, that's a lot of hearts.
Yeah.
Okay,
She was practicing.
so
Well, and
she's
I honestly like I didn't. So it's funny because like I used to live in the Middle East, and I've had this done like many times when we would take people out for like your traditional what you do when you come to the Middle East stuff. Um but I didn't have it on very long this time. Like 30 minutes, and then I kind of cleaned it all off, and then I was like, and then but it like 24 hours later it comes to its full color, and it's like very solid stained right now.
it's
I'm like, oh well.
you're in like a profession where you can get away with that. It's not like you're a lawyer or whatever.
I
It's
was gonna say at least I don't work a real job,
yeah.
and I can I can get away with having stuff on my hands. So
That's like me.
yeah.
Like I could show up with tattoos all across my head, like the top of them, real ones, permanent. Nobody would care. They would whatever. Just go fix that. We don't care what you look like. You
Yeah.
know, just put your hat on and go to work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just get the job done. Nobody cares.
So we got an interview coming up later on, and like I said, we'll talk about Battle Bunker quite a bit. But so a lot of people have been talking, and this has kind of been running through my head. So I thought we'd talk about it a little bit is because they keep Battle Bunker and Go Ruck Games and some other stuff are referred to as hybrid races or hybrid events.
Yeah.
I don't think they are
Battle bunker? Oh yeah, why?
because I think it's a fitness event with a hybrid race in it, kind of
Okay.
like CrossFit, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I mean, so the first event, and we'll go through it later, but it was called yard work or whatever, and there was lifting heavy bags and running. Blah, blah, blah. That's a hybrid race, 100% for sure.
Mhm.
Same as the first event they did last year.
Mhm.
But then they go to like bench press, deadlift, and overhead press, I believe. That's not a hybrid race. That's
Yeah.
just weightlifting, which is great,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's just weightlifting. And then the last event is just running. It's a running race.
Was it a rock run?
No, it was just a run.
Oh,
So to me, that is a fitness event with hybrid race in it. And the same to be said about CrossFit. I mean, so many CrossFit events can be Murph, totally a hybrid race.
yeah.
I can't even remember all the names because CrossFit always got different names for different events, but there's ones where they'll like run across the field and climb a rope and then do some clean and jerks and then run up a hill and drag a sled. Totally hybrid races. RX1, same thing. But
Yeah.
but then at CrossFit, then they'll have, okay, well, now we're going to do max deadlift. So it's got hybrid races in it, but it's not a hybrid
Yeah.
race. You see where I'm getting?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, finding max numbers of lifts isn't really a race. So you can't really call it a hybrid race. You could maybe call it like a hybrid fitness event because
Yes.
you are testing different different uh like areas of fitness, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a race. Like the word race is very much like on your market set go, and then the fastest person that does all of the things wins.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And that's why I think it's come down to, and talk to other people about it and heard that, and goes through my mind. So I
Mhm.
need to define what a hybrid race is. So I've been working on it. I've been working on a definition. I'm almost there. But here's the question I have for you about said definition. Is an obstacle course race a hybrid race?
Yeah, I would say yes.
See, I'm thinking it is too. At first, my thought was no, keep them separated.
Mm-mm.
Gotta keep them, and like, yeah, was keep them separated, and they're two different things, but they're not.
No,
If
no.
anything, an obstacle course race is a version of a hybrid race, much like High Rocks is a version of the hybrid race,
Yeah,
and DECA is a version of the hybrid race. It's OCR is a version of a hybrid race.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah, hybrid just meaning you're testing different types of fitness. So like you're carrying, you're running, you're like obstacling over walls, hanging from things. It's like using all these different types of skills and athleticism within a start and finish line.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you need a cardio aspect, i.e., running, swimming, skiing, whatever, crawling, something that is like
Yeah,
a cardiovascular
hiking.
mobile hiking. Yeah, something like that mixed in with a strength portion. And when you say strength portion, it doesn't have to be, you know, cleans with 300 pounds. It
Yeah,
can be burpees, it can be push-ups, it can be pull-ups, it can be something very simplistic, but still a strength portion of it. So yeah, at first I had written up a definition that had a thing about obstacles and 50%. I did no, scratch that, simplify, and that's gone. Because I do believe now that I've thought about it and talked about it. I talked about with Dylan and even Jeff was mentioning it. Just yeah, yeah. I think it just is what it is, and
hmm
there you go. So I will release this definition eventually.
Yeah, we'll keep simplifying it because we don't want it to be too long. But yeah, where you're testing like different elements of fitness
Hmm.
with a start and finish line, and as long as it's not like one movement the entire time.
That's right. That's right. But
Mhm.
okay, so hold on. Yeah, not one movement, but for something like, let's say, a ruck run. So for example, at Go Ruck Games, they did a um what you call it? They did a mile run with 100 pounds on their back.
So that would not, by definition, be a hybrid race because you're testing like like one skill.
So is that's still just technically a running race with a bit of a caveat, like a trail race would be?
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it'd be like a non, so that'd be a mono uh like a mono skill based run. So like the ability to run with a rucksack. That's one skill. So you're not really hybrid. So
Okay.
you could just train running with a rucksack and then you're a mono ability athlete.
Interesting. Interesting. All right, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. I'm still a little gray on that though, but I still have to find out how to define that, if it's good, if it's not. This is what my time has been. What happens when you drive too much is you just think about these
Yeah.
things, constantly driving and thinking and thinking and thinking. But I felt pressure since, we coined hybrid racing as a phrase, but now we need to put out a proper
We
definition.
need to define it. Well, we'll keep fine tuning the hybrid racing
Yes,
definition.
yes, yes. And then eventually people will argue with it anyway, but it'll be too late.
Yes. But
The
that's
start
fine.
the start
Yeah.
and finish line I totally like though.
hmm
And the first thing that people are going to say is, well, Deca Strong and Deca Mile at gyms don't have a start and finish line, but they
They kind
will.
of do.
They will. They're going to have real ones eventually.
Yeah.
When they had it
Yeah.
at Worlds, how cool was it at that last minute, the last second?
Yes. Diving across the finish line. But they still have a defined start and a defined finish.
Yes, yes, they do. But I want a line. I want a line. And because I think back to Worlds, and it was like, and even High Rocks, every High Rocks is that little sprint across the line after the wall balls.
Yeah.
and it came up with Kent and Toby this year was really close finish there. And then
Yeah.
again, Kent and Rylan last year at Deca Worlds, Kent having to kind of hop over Rylan's legs for that last burpee
The
off.
Deca Mile. Yeah.
Um, Rich Ryan and Ryan Corning in the strong when we didn't know for a while who got it because the chip timing it was so
Yeah.
close. So
Hmm.
that's what I mean. I think it needs that finish line. And even if you think about a local event, if you got two people going head to head right at the end there, and they got to do that little sprint for the final little bit
Yeah.
like this, I just think it adds so much with so little. It could be 3 feet.
Yeah.
Just even throwing down that ram and then diving across the line. It's just
Yeah.
it's it's got to be there, and I will push to make things happen.
Hmm. I do like that actually with the strong and the mile, having defined start and finish lines at all events.
Yeah, yeah. And it's only got to be like a foot back or 2 feet back. It doesn't have to be much. So, I mean, like, you think even when you and I, when we went head to head, instead of like facing each other holding the ram there, we got a little start line that we got to go run, 5 feet, grab the ram and go. And it just, because we,
Yeah.
we had, that was like in the mile, right? We had to do that first run. So the miles at gyms already have a start line. They just need a little finish line after the thing, after the burpees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I like it.
out there, think about it. What is a hybrid race? How do you define it? And what is not a hybrid race. I think that's what you got to do is almost find out what is not a
Yeah.
hybrid race and then simplify the definition to cross off what you don't think. But yeah, obstacle course racing is a hybrid race.
Hmm. Yeah.
I need that little coffee cup and the sign that says prove me wrong. Change my mind. That's it. Change my mind, prove me wrong, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. Um, Training is going well for me lately. How about you? How are you feeling?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a bit up and down, but right now we're on the upswing, so it's good. I took a month off of racing, which I think was very good for me. Yeah, and things are calming down a lot with the Achilles, so I'm getting excited about dropping some fast running times with the mile and the fit coming up. Yeah, so we're on a bit of an upswing too. So I have been following, so Lauren Weeks released a training program with her partner, and I have been following that, and I really like the format because theirs is a little bit different than any other ones that I followed, and it's one of her tracks where it's kind of following what she does a little bit, but the way that it's formatted is that um, every day, and I mean, I don't exactly know what Lauren does, but I know these athletes at the top of the game are probably
Mm.
doing way more than you actually think, and which is why they're the best in the world. And so she lists all these different elements that she's doing in a day, and you kind of pick, so today this works best for me, so I'm going to take this out of today. And I really like that because I have a busy schedule, and my days sometimes I don't have time for like a 2 hour training session, and it's 30, and she has these, it's kind of broken up into these little blocks,
Mm.
so I can kind of pick what works for me in that day. And so I've been following her training, and I really like it. So yeah, if you wanted to try something different, and I've been experimenting a little bit with, we have a lot of our hybrid racing athletes who are releasing their programming. So kind of find one that works with you and your lifestyle and your training the best. And I've done a couple of them, and they all kind of have really positive things about them. But yeah, right now I've just been doing Lauren's, and I do really like it. So I like her style of training. It challenges me in all the ways that I don't typically train on my own. A little bit, it's a bit CrossFit type, which is again is very, it's more uncomfortable for me, which is probably what I need. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
I think that there's like you said, there's so many, and there's a lot of good ones out there. Like
Mhm.
I've had Rich Ryan's he got one of his 8 week programs pre Deca Strong, 8 weeks to a Deca Strong. It was a great program. It was awesome. It was really done and real well done. So kudos to Rich. And I know obviously I've been working with Tara. Tara does a great job. There's so many of them out there that
Yeah,
are doing such good work. Meg Jacoby doing great work. I'm not sure if Kent's doing it anymore. Ryland's doing his
Rylan has a good
uh,
one. Yeah.
like there's so many of them out there doing great work, and that's
Mhm.
just the names that are up there. Then there's other people like Jay Fit, another good guy doing something. There's just so many. You just gotta. I think you gotta, it's like finding the right shoe.
Yeah.
You just gotta kind of try, all right, I got a feeling about this. I'm gonna give it a try and ride it out for a while and see how it goes.
Yeah. And I mean, so Lauren's also, she has a 1 week free trial.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
if you want to just kind of see what the programming is like, then and I forget what it's her again, it's hybrid something. I
The,
don't
the hybrid experience, I think. And it's
okay.
THE.
Yeah. And okay, so yeah. And then so if you wanted to just try that one out too. So and I mean I think a lot of these people are very responsive and approachable too if you wanted to message them on socials and just kind of get a feel for what their training is like. So if you're kind of lost for how to train for these hybrid racing, because there's, and I mean, the cool thing too about hybrid racing is there's no defined way to train for it.
No.
So whatever you kind of like doing, you kind of find an athlete who you think probably trains that way. So, and they all do train like there's a lot of similarities, but there's also I have found a fair amount of differences too. So just kind of find one that you jive with the most. Or the
And,
one that does all the things that you don't like doing, and maybe that's the one you need to work with.
ugh. And if you find the right coach, she will drag you to a podium. So that's the best way to do it. Just find a
Yeah.
coach who will team up with you and drag you to a podium and make you look better than you are.
Yeah. Or some solid personal best.
Exactly. See, look, I got my baton up here.
Oh, like team up with your solid
Yeah,
coach.
yeah. Drag you right
Maybe
to
like a previous world champion.
exactly, exactly. Part of being a good athlete is being smart enough to know how to pick the right partners. You're gonna pick the right relay partners. That's what it's all about. Um, yeah, so I think what we'll do, we'll move on, we'll move forward, we'll get to the interview. So with us to talk Battle Bunker, we have the brothers. Why don't you start, Josh? You can start and you can introduce yourself, and then we'll get into your Battle Bunker experience. Well, Joel, sorry, geez,
No, you're good.
I'm reading the
Well,
thing
so
here. Okay, fair enough. I'm dyslexic, so when I read things, I read what I think is there.
you're good. You're good. Luke is the one who did the battle bunker, and I recapped it in the article we put out. So Luke can talk about his experience actually doing the event.
So Luke smashed it and you bashed it.
Yes, that is
I think
correct.
we both mashed it a little bit.
All right, so let's
I think,
let's first. Why don't you start up before you get into your experience? Why don't you go through and just explain kind of what Battle Bunker is and even how you decided you want to get involved? Because this is year two of Battle Bunker.
yeah, so Battle Bunker it's a hybrid competition, which means a combination of cardio and weights, which I have really gotten into, like the DECA. I haven't been able to do a high rocks yet, which like it kills me every time I watch one, especially like the championships. I'm just sitting there like, come on. So they finally have one coming to DC, so I'll finally get to do one. Anyway, so yeah, it's hybrid fitness. They put out their um read no virtual qualification challenge, and I saw that. I was like, okay, that looks awesome. So you had to do thrusters and burpees, which suck combined together, but that's a good like. And actually, the weights were super heavy, like 50, at least for me. They were 50-pound dumbbells, and you're doing thrusters with those combined with burpees. That was a lot for me, coming from more of like an OCR running type background. So then you had to find your squat max, your 3 rep squat max, and then also your overhead shoulder press max. So there's the real combination of strength there. And then the last part for the qualification was a 1 mile time trial, and that sucked. I haven't done one of those in such a long time, and I was dreading it. I put it off until the very last day, and it turned out to be pouring rain that day. It was cold. I was like, I should have done it earlier, but anyway. So yeah, that was their qualification process for the regional event that I participated in. I did not qualify originally. I qualified through the roll down because there were some people who weren't able to make it. So I actually thought like, a week or two had gone by and I was like, okay, whatever, I missed my chance. It was still a lot of fun and it really motivated me to do better because trying to move those weights and then seeing how other people did and what their numbers were, I was like, man, this is a big opportunity for me to improve. Anyway, I ended up getting that email for the invite for the regionals. So that was awesome. I was really excited about it. Um, I started training for it based off of what they had on the virtual aspect. And then when they put out what the actual regionals would be, I was like, wow, I've been doing the exact wrong thing. I was trying to really focus on strength, which is what I thought I would need the most. And it turned out it was like the Murph style workout at regionals, which is just like a lot of endurance and high reps. And then you had the running one. There was a strength one as well, but it was definitely not what I had envisioned. So I'm glad they put out the workouts in advance.
So that whole pipeline thing, and that was free too, was it not? They let you do that for free.
Yeah, yeah. And it wasn't complicated at all. And I think for the pipeline, as far as I know, like everything went smooth for me. I don't know if there were, I didn't see anybody else's videos, so I know the judging in the regionals is something we're going to talk about. I don't know how it was for the pipeline. I saw like, clips they put up on their social media, but that's it. I don't know anything else. For me, it was a smooth process, so I can't really speak on that.
Well, I mean, I can say this just from personal experience that anytime you have any form of squat in a virtual competition,
Yeah.
it is a nightmare. And I feel not just bad, I feel bad for the people judging it, but it's one of those that if I'm building a competition virtually, I'm never going to pick as a movement wall balls, squats, thrusters, anything that gets a person where you have to judge. Because
Yeah.
I've told this story before, we once helped judge a virtual high rocks from the UK where they had squats, and it got to the point where I had to put a piece of dental floss across my computer screen to justify if people were going down past parallel, because I wanted to be fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to be, as objective and fair as possible. And it was hilarious. It was funny when they heard me do
Yeah,
it.
whatever it takes to be, yeah, that's awesome.
And the fact of the matter is, it was a disaster. Like, it was a great event and everybody did really well, but the amount of no reps, because the other judges, when we talked, started doing the same thing. It was a nightmare. The amount of no
Yeah.
reps was unbelievable. People were just blown away. And then we'd show them the videos and say, well, judge it yourself. Here you are. Like, watch yourself go. And it's there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would not have been a choice for me for that.
Yeah. I mean, if it's only a couple no reps here and there, it's not like a big deal. People aren't going to get too upset. But if everybody is getting no rep a lot, that kind of screws up the whole competition.
And it becomes sort of, but yeah. So, and then the 1 mile thing again. Now, when they did the mile, did they make you do it on a track, like a 4 lap on the track?
Yes, they said
Right.
it had to be on a track. Yeah, so that I think again was, pretty easy. All you do is set up your camera and you don't like technically have to be in view the whole time. I'm pretty sure I was because if you just set it up horizontally, it's not like hard to do. But they said you don't even really have to be in it the whole time as long as you can see most of it, right? You might get cut off a little bit, but I think that's fine.
Hmm. I still think it's a mistake I made. People
To do
cheat.
the one
People
mile
cheat
time
all
trial.
the time. I think the mile time trial on a track is a brilliant idea. It needs to be done that way. That is super smart. But I think you need to be
Yeah.
in the video the whole time.
Okay.
I
I
don't know.
could
No,
be
not for their
wrong.
competition. They allowed what you did. I'm just saying that again, if you're gonna set it up and you want to be up, because these guys were giving away money,
Yeah, a lot of money.
a lot of money. And if
Yeah.
you're giving away a lot of money, you need to be bang on. And that's where I
That's what
think,
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
but
Yeah, I mean,
at the same time though, like that was a qualification process. So they weren't
Mhm.
giving away money based on just getting there. So I think though, like, and I don't know how easy it is to edit videos, but like to go and like stitch together videos to make sure that if you're coming in the frame and out of frame to botch a 1 mile time to show up at an event and then be blown away, like wouldn't you be embarrassed? Like I it would shock me if someone was going to go to lengths like that. So and like I did the qualification process and I was so stressed because I had my 9-year-old kid videotape me and I'm like, try to keep me in the frame the whole
Oh
time,
no.
please. Like, no, you got to follow me around. And like the attention span of a 9-year-old with a
Yep.
phone in their hands. And I'm like, just do your best. Like, try to keep me in the frame. So, like, again, it's like, I don't know. And then at the end of the day, there were sections where like, oh, they're looking at their shoes or the grasshopper on the, oh, shoot, I was supposed to be keeping mommy in the frame. Like, so, I mean, it's just, I think that's so hard to do when you're doing these virtual things to try to figure out how to get a video of, and that was only a mile. So I think with the Strava, like if you have your Strava and you can verify that you were on a track for that amount of time, I think that's totally fine.
If you have the Strava backing it up, it's okay. If they're calling for the Strava to back it up, that's okay. But I'm so jaded because I've seen so many people cheat at these virtual events through COVID where it just got ridiculous. And the first thing that enters my head is when you don't have to be in the screen the whole time is as soon as somebody's out of the screen, they're just going to walk around the other side, clock about whatever time on that, and run by again, walk around the other. Because if you set it up to cheat, people will find a way. And the amount
it's not harder to do than actually running the mile.
Yeah, but
I know.
But people will do it. I swear to God. Like,
when you have that much money on the line, thousands and thousands of dollars in prize money, I mean, somebody is going to do it. And some people just cheat because that's how they are. Like,
right.
They just instinctively try and find some way to get around the rules, and that's just how some people are. So,
and I swear you would have people that'd be like, they would cheat their way to be on the top of the virtual leaderboard and then say, oh, I can't make it because I have a hamstring injury or a knee injury, but I was on the top of the leaderboard.
I was on the top. Yeah.
Just for bragging rights, put it on their Instagram profile. People are vain.
Yeah. I will say though, like when I was going through the pipeline process, I was trusting of their judgment of how people are going to do things because I didn't know. I haven't experienced anything with Battle Bunker before that. So I was trusting of the process, but then going to regionals. Okay, so during the pipeline, you had thrusters. That's an overhead press with a squat. You had the strict shoulder press. You had the squat. Then when we get to regionals, you see people doing the shoulder press. That was just the worst shoulder press like I've ever seen in my entire life. Anybody would know that does not count as a rep. Same with the squats, same with the push-ups. So if they're not calling it during the regionals when it's live on TV with like 8,000 people watching, they're not going to, that makes me think they're not going to call in the pipeline. So I'm like, I was stressing about it. I got just the right angle for the squats as best as I could. I'm a personal trainer, so I watch form. I'm like, okay, maybe this is the right angle so they can see perfectly like what I'm doing and there's no question about it. I put in that effort, but now I don't think like did the other people did they judge it correctly? I don't know.
No. Well, I saw videos that weren't squats. I mean, I saw it's like it's not all the way. Like it's great movement, it's strong, it's powerful, good for you, but according to the rules, you didn't go deep enough. Not you particularly, but I'm not calling you. I'm just saying I saw videos that were like that, and I was not surprised. Well, and I mean, we because the reason being is we think back to OCR Stars. OCR Stars was the virtual competition that Hunter did over the COVID essentially, and there was
I forgot about that.
Yeah, like every other virtual event, there was judging issues, and
I remember some.
Yeah. So that's why I was not surprised to see that pattern continue because there was nothing that indicated to me it would change. So we went up for this. So the one thing I will say though about OCR Stars, and I've always commended them for this, is they promised money and they paid that money out. Whether they lost money on the whole deal or not, they paid out that money. They promised a Jeep and they gave away a Jeep.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah,
they did. Yeah, I might critique their judging. I might critique a lot of the stuff they did, but they made promises and they owned up to them. And I always, you got to respect that. Good for them.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree.
Especially for a Jeep.
Yeah. And judging by the numbers, I can't believe they made money on that. So again, good for them to give out the prize money. When a lot of companies would have went, well, we didn't make any money, so sorry about that.
Yeah.
Let's change the name and do something different. And they did. They backed it up. So okay, so you got the roll down. By the way, I'm the master of the roll down. It's helped me out a lot. You got the roll down. You got off. You got to go to regionals. So let's go from there. How did it all go? This you were in the East in North Carolina.
Yes, yeah. And so, I mean, overall, I thought, at least for the first event, so big picture, I love the event. I love the workouts. I thought they were awesome. I thought they were creative. I love the Murph workout. When COVID happened, all I had really was a weight vest. And so I started doing tons of squats and pull-ups and push-ups and stuff like that. So it was already something like I enjoyed doing. The Murph is one of my favorite workouts. So the first workout was a 1 mile run with a 20-pound vest, and then 60 shoulder presses with a 100-pound bag for the men, 70 for women. And then you had, I think it was 120 push-ups,
Yep.
and then 240 squats, and then another 1 mile run. So very similar to the Murph. I loved it. It was a really fun workout.
That's a cool workout.
Yeah, for sure. The second workout, that was also awesome. I've never done a competition that involves bench press and deadlift, and I've been doing those movements for years and years and years because I enjoy them, and I never got to like put them into practice. So to actually go to a competition and be able to do that was cool. We did a 1 minute max rep for 185-pound bench press, 135 for women, and then you had 3 minutes of rest in between, and then a 1 minute max rep for deadlifts, 315 for men, 225 for women. So again, that was awesome. Like, there were definitely some poor judgment calls there. So to preface that, Hunter before each event would tell people what the rules are. Clearly, he would say it very clearly. There was no question about it. But then there was no follow through during the event. So when people are doing the bench press and their hips aren't supposed to leave the bench, and then their hips are leaving the bench and nobody's saying anything, like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, keep counting reps that aren't counting, and nobody's doing anything about it. So again, a really awesome workout, but the follow through and the execution of the judging was just poor. There was no judging, honestly. I didn't hear like any no reps at all. There was always like, oh, lock out your elbows or all the way up or put your hips down, but there was never a no rep. You shouldn't have to warn somebody when you've already said the rules.
Yeah, yeah. So you went in the first event. So you get there and do the first event, the yard work, which again we said sounded like a great workout.
Yeah.
And immediately upon hearing what that workout is, I think that is a killer workout. That's awesome. That's great. But as soon as I hear it and I hear everything always clicks to me to how is this going to be judged and how essentially, and I think when you're programming one of these events, the first question you need to ask yourself is, how is this going to go wrong?
That is the correct question. Yes.
So you get there and I look at that and I think, okay, shoulder press with a sandbag. One, there's not going to be lockouts aren't going to be consistent. People are going to kind of just get it over the head. They're going to rest it on their head. People are going to shoot it out in front of their head. It's a very difficult one to judge. And again, I don't like coming down on judges because it is a really, really hard job.
For sure.
But you need to pick movements that your judges can effectively judge. And in a situation like that where they were doing essentially the overhead, I would have just as soon seen them gone like a clean over the head onto the back, over the head back into the rack and back down on the ground, because there's no judging. It's just over the head and back down. Shoot, score,
That's a
easy to
really
judge.
good idea.
You're
I
just
like
essentially
that.
counting reps. And again, from previous experience, push-ups are bullshit to have in any competition like that because they are a mess everywhere. And I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
they
sure,
were.
like, so Joel, you watched it. Tell me
Yeah.
what you saw when you saw the push-ups.
So for the men's, and I mentioned this in the article I wrote, I wasn't paying attention to the men's event nearly the same way I was for the women's because I was watching Luke specifically for the men's and trying to keep up with his reps, which I kept losing track of. Doesn't matter. But when the women went, like the push-ups, I honestly I tried after the fact, and I can't do push-ups the way they did them. But they were only moving half of their body. So from the waist, like the belly button, up to the head was going down and up, but the legs were staying in the exact same spot the whole time. So they're lifting like half of their body weight, and they counted all of the reps to my knowledge. I never saw anyone no rep it, and we were watching for quite a while. So yeah, I was terrible. And I honestly don't know the names of most of those female athletes. So I can't even call them out if I wanted to, but that's not the point. It's like the judges and Hunter specifically was alerted to the reps, and he went over to one of the ladies and like touched her torso and said something like to the effect of like, lift this up, like you got to move your whole body. And then after a few seconds, he walked away, and there was no visible change in her form or anything said about like, oh, well, some of those reps didn't count. She didn't progress backwards or forward. Like it didn't change anything. So
So
yeah, it was.
was it like a worm? Was their whole body coming up, kind of like people do with like the bottom burpee, or was their legs staying down?
No, so from feet to hips was in the exact same spot the whole time. So it's like a plank here, and then I can't even. Yeah, so it's like this. If my wrist bone is the feet, and then my knuckles are the hips, their upper body's going like this, but their legs never come down. So it should be like this, and it was
Yeah.
going like this.
Hmm.
So not nearly the same stress on the muscles, not nearly the same movement.
But
So
again, so as a competitor, if you're not being called a no rep and it's easier, you just keep doing it.
well, yeah, I mean, that's what some people do. Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're like, I think everyone who's competitive in athletics knows the proper form, especially if it's been demonstrated and told. So if they know it and they've done it, then they know what it feels like to do it the right way and not the right way. So
Mhm.
they should have just been doing it the right way. But I do understand in top competitive things, when judges don't call no reps, people just keep going. Even though they shouldn't, they do it.
Yeah, because you got to figure in that case, you're thinking if okay, so I know I'm doing them right, and I have seen this in events where that we've been doing personally and with some of my friends,
Mhm.
they're doing them right, and other people aren't. So you're immediately, by being honorable, putting yourself at a massive disadvantage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
afterwards, no one's going to care that you did it right and everybody else did it wrong. They're going to care they won, and that's the person who's going to get the money or the prize or the podium or whatever the case may be.
It's
So it's
true.
like it's that vicious cycle of
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
You have to care far more about your integrity than you do about what the other competitors are doing or even the prize money,
yeah. So
which is a hard line for people to ride.
yeah. So when I heard the overhead press, I thought that. When I heard the push-ups, I thought that. The run is the run. It's fine. It is what it is. That's in an environment like that, that's hard to screw up. But yet later on, maybe they did. But
For sure they did.
so
There's no maybes here.
so so you go through that and so it was overhead essentially overhead presses, push-ups, and then what was the last part? Just the run.
Squats.
Fine.
And
Squats.
again, we know squats.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I saw the videos back and clips back, and it's just I didn't see those people while I was doing it because I was just focused on my own thing, but it was bad for sure. Like a lot of the reps. So it's just unfortunate, that's all.
Yeah. And again, the reason we call it is not because we want to destroy anybody, not because we want to trash somebody, because we want it to be better. Because the
Yeah,
event is a kick-ass idea and a really cool idea and a great concept.
for sure.
It just needs to be executed better. So that's why we're talking about this stuff, not to complain, not to trash people, but to try to make it better for the next time. So hopefully people listen and say, okay, we need to work on this. Maybe this is an idea we can change things with. So then you already said you went to bench press, you went to overhead press, and you went to the squat, and that was again the same kind of judging issues from what we hear.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, again, Hunter, before the second event, he showed us exactly what he was expecting to see, and it was the correct form. He showed us the correct form, and I'm a very literal person, so I said, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm going to do. There you go. So, I mean, but again, there was just no follow through when it was time for people to actually do the events, not locking out the elbows on the bench press, hips not staying on the bench, not standing up all the way and getting your shoulders back on the deadlift, not bouncing on the ground. There was one guy who was bouncing, and Hunter was like, don't bounce, don't bounce, don't bounce. But that's all he said. So the guy got credit for those reps and maybe adjusted a little bit so he wasn't bouncing as much, but he got credit for those reps.
Yeah.
You can't tell somebody not to do it when you said it would be a no rep, you know? So he just let him keep going.
Yeah, and in something where like a 20 rep is a goal and you're getting 5 for free, or not for free, but 5 that should
Right.
be no reps, that's a
Five
massive,
easier.
massive difference.
Yeah, 5 easier.
Yeah. So Joel, why don't you go through the last event, the run? Because to me, it seemed like from reading your article, this may have been the inspiration for writing said article.
So it absolutely was, because like, yeah, I had seen the women's form, the problems with that since I was only watching Luke on the first one. And then the second event, I was paying far less attention to the form. I was just kind of enjoying it because seeing the bench and the deadlift was actually really fun to watch. Just people cranking out reps. And everyone, all the spectators were really into it, like cheering everyone on. But the final event, so it's the same exact course that they ran on the first event without a weight vest this time. And the way they had it set up was it was an all-out sprint. And so once the athletes, oh, baby's awake. Once the
Okay, we like
athletes,
babies and puppies. It's all cool.
so once the athletes had run around the track the first time, the final 3 people to cross the start line again would get pulled. And that would continue. There was an odd number of guys since they had planned on 21. I think they had 18 or 19 show up. So the numbers were going to change at the very end. Mm-hmm. But for the first multiple rounds, it was going to be 3 people get eliminated each time. So they had multiple judges standing on both sides of the start line to catch who the back 3 were at the end. But as you can imagine, when 19 dudes are in like a 10 to 13 foot wide corridor sprinting at full speed, you know, it's going to be really hard to judge because you don't have timing chips. You just have eyeballing it. So I wasn't directly in line with the start line. I was a little bit offset, but I was very close, and I was watching it with some friends. And like before it happened, I didn't think too hard about it. I was like, okay, they'll catch the back 3. That's cool. And then once the first lap went around, they pulled Luke, but it was like chaos. It was chaos when they crossed for the first time on the first lap, because you have judges on both sides seeing different numbers, trying to call out different numbers, and Hunter's standing behind them like, guys, what are the numbers? And then eventually 2 guys were yelling numbers to him. So he goes running after the athletes and calls out numbers. And I don't remember what Luke's number was, but he called it. So Luke stops running. But then I believe someone told Luke, one of the other judges was like, no, not your number. Yeah. So he started running again, which like is on their footage. You see him just stop. And then all of a sudden he's running like 40, 50 yards behind the rest of them, trying to catch up for the next lap. But it was just like an absolute mess. And it was, if you sat down and thought about it for more than a minute, it was pretty easily to predict that there were going to be problems. Without timing chips to know specific times, there was no way they were going to accurately call 3 people without any anyone contesting that at the last second. So yeah, it was a mess.
Did you feel at any point during the competition that there was favoritism played towards certain athletes?
No, but like I didn't know most of the athletes, so I wouldn't know anyway. A lot of them are in hybrid, and I've mostly stuck to obstacle course racing. I do like DECAs and stuff, but I haven't done some of these types of competitions like Luke has, so I don't know a lot of those guys. But I didn't notice any favoritism.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's good. It did seem like a predictable outcome, like you said.
Yeah.
Whereas again, in the design of the event, I would think, and I understand what they wanted to do. It sounds really cool in practice.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Really great idea. But yeah, you need those timing chips. And otherwise, if you cannot put that in, I think in that scenario, you would have had to do, because it was a bit of a 260 meter lap, give or take somewhere.
It was just it was way too small of a lap for what they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So you would have had to, in my mind, if that's what you had and that's what you're working with, then what you do is you have everybody run the 1 lap and stop, and then work out who's out, and then give yourselves 2 minutes. 2 minutes, we work out who's 3 are out, boom, back off, next lap, next 3 out, boom. And yeah, it doesn't do exactly what you wanted to do with the event because you wanted to have that on the fly, but without the chips, you just can't do it. And with someone like yourself, you can't make a mistake because once that mistake's made, it's done. There's no
Yeah.
real.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
there's
the
no way to
thing.
fix it.
We have a video of it, and Joel took screenshots that shows me after that first lap being the fourth from the back and not the third, which means I shouldn't have been called out. And it's right in line with the cones that they were using as their line.
Mhm.
So, I'm not saying I would have made it further, or I mean, I should have made it further, but I'm not saying it like would have got me to qualify further. I'm just saying like I would have made it another lap. I should not have been eliminated in that first lap. We'll never know what would have happened if it was called correctly, but I mean, I would have liked the opportunity to find out.
Yeah, and I've heard things where maybe they say stuff like, well, it wouldn't matter. It's just another lap and they would have been out in the next lap and stuff like that. But one, you're absolutely right. You don't know that. And two, in a situation with yourself, you were a guy who has more done OCR, who has done a lot more running, who done a lot of that, was not necessarily a power athlete. Power athletes can sprint pretty hard for 260 meters, but they start to die out pretty quick.
Right? I
And
mean,
that could have been
that's
a
the thing.
scenario where you could have come back. So it's not
You
predictable.
never know. You
Yeah.
never know. But when Austin contacted me, he called me, I don't know, several days after. So it happened on Saturday. He probably called me on Monday. I think it was Monday, yeah. And I mean, I could tell by the way he was talking, which I'm not necessarily bashing him by saying this, but he was just very clearly telling me and not asking me about what was happening in the situation. He wasn't exactly concerned with my opinion on the topic or how, that I have proof that I was not placed correctly in that last event. It was more just him saying, "This is the final decision. I'm sorry, we made that mistake," and blah, 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 which, whatever. You have to do what you have to do to move the whole process along, and there's no way of turning back time. They'd have to redo the event completely. I get that. You can't do anything about it, so it is what it is. But I mean, yeah, so it's just
So in that it was the top 9 move on to the Hypercon, correct?
yeah,
And where did you
yes.
end up finishing?
So I was told that day, and this was another thing we talked about in the article. They took a long time to judge, to put together all the scoring, a long time for that amount of people. It was a very excessive amount of time, which says like there's something kind of wrong there. Like why can't you put together the scores much quicker? There was time in between each event when you can calculate each event individually. By the time you get to the last one, all you have to do is the last one. And if you actually kept it organized, you just say what number it was, and then you add them together. It's not difficult, right? So I forget where I was going with that.
Your placement. You were told you
Oh,
placed.
yes. Sorry. Yeah. So I was told I was placed in ninth. So I was kind of surprised by that because how the last event went, that I was called out first. But at the same time, I was relieved. I wasn't exactly going to question it. And then, yes, he calls 2 days later. I think I ended up getting 11th or 10th, one of those two. But it was something about, I honestly, it wasn't really clear what Austin said, but I think something about, I don't know, some numbers got mixed up or whatever, and somebody was called who wasn't supposed to, and so they got a better placement. I don't know. It was confusing. So it is what it is. And when I was called out, so Hunter called out my number. I was like, crap, okay, I gotta stop. That's how it works. The head judge runs over and looks at me and says, "Why are you stopping? Keep running." He called 15 or whatever, and my number was 17. I was like, that's why I started running again to try and catch everybody. But I mean, it was way too late. But Hunter says one thing, and then like 2 seconds later, the head judge is running up, like, "Why are you stopping?" I'm like, "What do you like?" I'm stopping because I was just told to stop by the race director.
So so Joel, you're there, you witness the whole thing, and you decide to write the article. And essentially, your article, you pretty much have said what we've talked about.
Yeah.
Have-
Yeah, because so like small competitions, which theirs is not very small. Like it's got a ton of money on the line, and it's a pretty complex setup as far as having virtual regionals and then an actual huge event with top athletes across the sport. So to me, it's like, if you're going to do that, especially with that kind of money and the caliber of athletes you're going to be bringing to that event, like, you cannot just have simple screw ups happen. There, like, even in the Olympics, things can go wrong, right? But you can foresee many of the problems that they encountered, and you can plan for them to not happen. And it seems like there was just a lot of lack of planning and lack of foresight and problem solving in advance. So that, I mean, that's why I wrote it, because it was so towards the end of the day, especially after the final event where, like, it clearly was messed up. I was like, I'm 99% sure Luke wasn't in the back three. And then some friends standing there watching with me said the same thing. I'm like, pretty sure it wasn't him. And then the debacle with the judge telling him, oh, it wasn't you. So it's just like a bad thing all from that point on. But it took like 90 minutes to get the final scores. And the whole time I was just in this like terrible mood. Like, when are the scores coming out? Come on. I would just want to go home. I'm hungry. Get me out of here. So I was, when Luke got announced as getting ninth, I was like, wow, that's a miracle, because he got the worst possible score on the final event, which wasn't his fault for getting that score, but he still made it to ninth. So, like, that's awesome. He did well enough on the first two, but then to have that backtracked, yeah, it's just not, it's not professional. It's not anything that should be competitive sports. So I thought there was a significant lack of professionalism, and that's why I wrote the article. Hopefully, I don't know if they saw it. Maybe they don't care even if they did see it, but hopefully it like starts some wheels spinning where they think, oh, maybe we ought to plan better and problem solve in advance and make this a professional event that people can watch and be a part of and be like, man, I gave it everything, I just didn't earn it. Instead of being like, I gave it everything and I was robbed.
Well, to be fair, I watched the last man standing event of the West Coast regionals, and it was
Yeah.
very well done. They did exactly what we're talking about right now. I'm not saying they necessarily read the article, but they took 2 laps. The first lap did not count as elimination. It was only by the second lap, and the laps were much one wider and two longer. So the people, everybody, all the athletes, by the time they got there on the second lap, they were a lot more spread out, and it was very clear. There was a guy filming it. I watched his video, and it was a side view. It was very clear who was out. So
Yep.
they did it the right way at West Coast. But I don't think this is necessarily a coincidence. Guess who was not the race director? Guess who was not there? And then, so I was like, okay, maybe Austin, was like, this isn't working. We're going to move on. But then Hunter's going to be race director at the championship. So
I have a question then about the scoring system. So this
Nobody knows. Sorry, go on.
we all have questions.
Sorry, Beth. Go ahead.
Okay, well then that maybe that answers my question. But after all of the scores kind of come out, do you understand then how he ended up placing where he did, or is it still kind of a mystery to you?
So to my understanding, the change that was made was initially every lap, the back three who got pulled got the same score on that final event. And then from what I could tell from the texts that were sent back and forth with Austin, they changed it so that those were not all the same, because I guess it was messing up the scoring a little bit. So I think they each got individual scores at that point. That's what it sounded like. I could be wrong on that, but it seemed that like the 19th guy may have got 19 points, however they were scoring. I think they were doing golf scoring. So yeah,
So
maybe
were they changing the scoring on the fly?
Yes.
They changed it after the fact, yes.
So there was no predetermined, this is how we're scoring each event. They kind of made it up as they went based on how the event went?
No, they said how the scoring would work. And then for the final event, I don't know that they did anything for the first two because they never said anything about it. But for the final event, they changed the way they would score it afterwards, because I guess they ran into a problem with maybe ties or something. I don't know.
Again,
Yep.
foreseeable stuff that should be cleaned up beforehand.
Yep. Yeah.
And
If you're giving 3 people the same score on one event, it's very conceivable that you could end up with a few ties.
yes, exactly. And they did run into scoring issues. Now, seemingly very different scoring issues last year when they did it, where they had a very convoluted scoring system that still to date, not many people understand. They did seem to simplify the system this time, like you say, using a golf scoring or cross country scoring, which is cool. That's great. That's a nice, simple, clean system. But yeah, you got to have tiebreakers put into place and ahead of time, because you should be expecting ties. It's just the nature of the beast there. So that is odd as to why they would not have anticipated that.
I I I I don't know much about last year and how it went, except after posting what I did from the event and then the article we shared as well. I got several messages from people saying like, "Oh yeah, man, like that's how last year was, and that's why I didn't participate this year." There were several people who said that, and I can't speak on last year because I didn't even watch it. I didn't really know anything about it. I remember hearing about it and that's it. But I didn't participate or follow it at all. So that's just what other people said to me.
So again, hopefully, like you said, the West seemed to go much better than the East. But again, we weren't there firsthand, so let's just assume the judging was better and that things were cleaned up. Hopefully they have learned. I think my big question for you, Joel, is what has been the response from the article you wrote?
I mean, not a ton. There are a bunch of comments and stuff, people being like, "Oh man, that sucks," but there wasn't like no one official, for Battle Bunker or anything reached out, which I was not expecting anyway. That's not why I wrote it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hopefully anyone putting on any event who reads that just like takes a little more time to think through either the exercise choice or the distance or the scoring method or whatever, and puts a full plan in place before they get out there and sticks to it. And I also wrote an article, like, if you're putting on your first event, of course, everyone expects something to go wrong because you have no experience with it. But the people putting on this event had done it last year, and many of the people involved, in like Hunter, for example, has done world championships like crazy. I mean, I don't even know how many he's done. A lot of world championships. So when you have that combination of experience competing and experience putting on the event, you expect much more. And you should expect more when there's like 50,000 whatever dollars ultimately on the line in prize money. So yeah.
So again, you said it a lot in the article and said it tonight. Professionalism is what it will take to grow this sport, and definitely in situations like that. And when you have, as soon as you put money on the line, and even before then, you have to have things tight as a drum. It's got to be as airtight as possible.
So that's the thing. You just said professionalism. When I watched part of the live feedback, the lady that Joel was talking about doing the push-ups that were just like, just awful.
There were more than one, by the way. We're not picking one person out. There are a few doing it that way.
Okay, one of the examples was awful, and it was on the live screen, and Austin was commentating on it, and he said, "Oh, those are some hard reps to call." That's all he said about it. And then he went to talk about the brute force weight vest, which is fine, they're the sponsor or whatever, so totally cool. But he's got like 8,000 or whatever. He has 500,000 people subscribed to that YouTube channel. Is that really like, so I've said Hunter many times, kind of, putting it on him. But at the end of the day, as far as I know, this is Austin's thing. Battle Bunker is Austin, as far as I know. And I would fight to protect my reputation. And if I was there commentating and watching these awful, awful reps, like he knows it's not right. And if I was watching that, I would say something to Hunter, be like, dude, you gotta get your act together.
Yeah.
For his sake. Like it's his thing. So
yeah. And hopefully that conversation has occurred.
I mean, yeah, we don't know. And you're right, hopefully.
All right. Well, again, I want to reiterate, we don't want to just slam Battle Bunker. What we want is we want it to be better. We have hopes for the sport. We love the sport and we want it to grow and we want it to improve. And the fact that Austin is stepping up and throwing out his money and Hunter is stepping up and being involved and stuff, that's fantastic. But it's and it's horrible. It's not enough. You have to
Correct.
you have to do it right and you have to learn from your mistakes. And that's all we're hoping for, is for them to learn from their mistakes and the next event to be better and better and better all the way through. So hopefully they do, and hopefully they because yes, I guarantee this will get to them. And hopefully they take it as, it's not a you're an asshole, you're a this, you're that. It's not. It's a this is what's gone wrong and this is what needs to be fixed. And we talk this way about High Rocks a lot, and we talk this way about DECA, and we point out what we think is wrong in hopes that that helps to make it right. And sometimes it has. So great. Beth, do you got anything else for Joel and Luke?
No, thanks so much, Joel and Luke, for coming on. And thanks so much for your constructive criticism towards our hybrid racing world. And we hope that you continue to support it and keep doing just amazing work in this field as well. So yeah, thanks so much for the conversation and contributing to making the hybrid space that much better.
Thanks for having us. And that is our goal, is to grow the sport. That's what we truly care about. We love the sport. And so that's right. We're not just trying to bash them. We're actually trying to help the sport grow and be professional and taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And Joel, sorry, one more thing. Where can people find the article?
So it is on our blog at triofitnesstraining.com. And there's a little blog tab there. You can click it and the article's in there.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. And I guess, good luck on the next one. We'll see you out there.
That's right. See you.